All right, so it's 4:33. It looks like we have enough to get started. So go ahead and get started. Do I have screen share? I do. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Just give me one more second to get let me get my screen situated so I'm pulling from the right one and sharing to the right one. And then let me. All right, I even have a larger flag prepared rather than the Google images that I searched for last time. So, all right, so I'll go ahead and lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of the
United States of America
and to the
and to the republic
stands
for which it
stands
one nation
under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for
all.
All right, thank you, everyone. Let me start pulling up the agenda. Just bear with me as nope. The agenda's in here somewhere. I hit it and then I didn't put it back. So I'll grab that and I'll pull it up in a second. So Eric, you want to go since we have a couple of guests. I know that we have Jeff is here and Marathon is here for their project. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves when we get to that. Most of us know you, but Eric, you want to go ahead and take a second and introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Jared. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. My name is Eric Obernauer, and I live in the town of Canandaigua over on East Ridge Run. I've been here for about 6 years. I taught in the school district for 27 years primarily at the academy, but also at the middle school with Jared and a whole lot of other really good folks. I'm very interested in joining the Board of Environmental Conservation when it's deemed appropriate. I've currently completed a graduate certificate in environmental policy through SUNY Environmental Sciences and Forestry. So this is the environmental sciences, environmental activism, governance is kind of my second act, my post-career career. So thank you.
You bet. And when I found out all that, I'm like, man, he's somebody that we need here working with us. So he's got a lot of information to add and a lot that he can bring to the table. And I'd like to thank him for joining us today and also for what he's going to do in the future, even though he doesn't quite know exactly what that's going to be. I think we already have some plans of things that he can do as we go through in the future. All right, so it looks like Sarah Linda's jumping in. All right, so let's jump ahead to item E on the agenda, the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Any additions or retractions anyone would like to make? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Minutes are passed. All right, that brings us to our first privilege of the floor. Do we have any guests who would like to speak at this time who are not going to be speaking later on? All right, thank you. Do we have a report? We now have someone from the development office. So Shauna, why don't you go ahead and take a second and introduce yourself, since this is your first meeting, if you'd be willing to do that. And if you have any reports for us or any updates for us, that would be fantastic.
Well, good evening, almost. I'm happy to be here. I also am a town of Canandaigua resident. I've lived here for 12 years, raising 3 kids. One of them is in the middle school. The other 2 one hasn't made it to primary, but will next year. And then I have one in 4th grade. I am coming from Yates County. Planning office as the county planner, but I've always really been pulled to work in the community that I live in, so I'm really excited to be here. I don't have any reports for you. I'm getting acclimated. We're working on our first cycle of, or my first cycle of planning board review, and pretty full agenda. for June. And today we already have a referral for July. So I think it's gonna be a busy summer. But again, I'm excited and I appreciate this opportunity.
You bet. Thanks for being with us and thanks for being the representative. And we know that you're gonna have all the answers to any question that we ask. So we're excited. We're excited for that. Finally, someone with the answers.
Great.
No stress, right? No
Right,
stress.
I love those great expectations. Thanks.
No stress and no pressure.
Yep, yep.
But thank you. And we're glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
I don't have any referrals to bring up from the town board at this time. Do we have any referrals from the CIC? I don't know that we have anything to bring up at this point. We do, there is something from it's not an actual referral from the ordinance committee, but it's something that the ordinance committee is bringing up and looking at. That will be later on in the agenda towards the end, so we can get have our discussion on our site plan reviews first, and then we can circle back to that at the end. All right, so we are going to jump into CPN 21-042, which is Design Works Architecture regarding the property on 4681 North Menteith Drive. And I will bring that up on the map. I'm hoping that this works. I had them all preloaded. I'm trying to find the right one. And of course, everything is just suddenly really slow. So I believe, Sarah Linda, did you have the Menteith Drive one?
Yes, I do.
All right, so if you could, do you mind starting on that one?
Sure, that's fine. Let's take a look at the Encore map first and get people acclimated where it is and so on.
Yes,
And the photographs.
Oh, really? It kicked me out. So give me a second. I had it all preloaded, but it kicked us out. So we'll go to, I should bring this up. All right, so here we are, 4681 North Menteith Drive.
Okay, great. This is a parcel that goes through from West Lake Road, County Road 16, through to the lake. It's just a little bit to the south of where Wells Curtis Road comes in. And it's the very northernmost cottage on Menteith Point itself. This is right where the lake starts to curve out into the point. It is a cottage that was originally a boathouse. And it was originally, I'm not sure if it was the same parcel, but it was managed and owned in connection with the parcel immediately to the south, 4785, which was a lakefront hotel around the early 20th century. The owners think the building was built around 1900. The hotel was called the Walter Rita. And there was a third property that also was operated in conjunction with these two that we've seen before. The property that is just almost opposite Wells Curtis Road, and it's called Cedar Lodge. We reviewed a proposal 2 years ago, I think, for demolition of a older cottage there and replacement with a new cottage, and that did receive town approval, but then it didn't happen. So that one, at least not yet. So anyway, this one, there's a fairly narrow band of level land down at the lakefront, and then most of the parcel, which is a fairly large parcel, it's over an acre, it is quite steep and quite heavily wooded. When you look at the very top corner of the parcel, you're getting into some fairly level land again. And that is where the proposed septic system will go. So they fortunately have that bit. So let's take a look at the photographs now. Okay, this is a two-story building. That porch at the lower level, it has a sleeping porch above. And presumably to begin with, that whole lower level was for storage of boats. But the building was converted to a single family cottage in the it was converted by the 1940s, which was the decade when the family that still owns it, the Gifford family, bought it. So they've been there for 80 years or so. And they still own the house next door also. So this is a kind of a family compound. It's on 2 separate parcels, but they use the land in common. Whoa, here's a rainstorm. So next photo. This is the south view. Here's looking back towards Westlake Road. You might remember, those of you who have been on the ECB for a few years, we have seen this property a few times. The first applications that we got just had to do with stabilizing the lake, the shoreline itself, and stabilizing this steep bank. And so you see this retaining wall made of timbers and steel that was built within the last couple of years to try to address problems of erosion of the bank and so on. The existing driveway is gravel, the existing is just a big parking area down at the far end of North Menteith Drive. Next photo. The project itself involves demolishing the building and replacing it with another cottage, which is essentially on the same footprint, although it is enlarged in a couple of ways, and I'll go over that. But the second aspect of it is taking this quite small shed, which is near the northern edge of the parcel, and moving it even farther to the north, so that they will be able to get a little bit more lawn on the north side there. So their intent is to shift it just to, you see this tree that's kind of heading up. Yeah, that tree may have to come out in order for them to slide the building, and it'll be settled on that beach that is just beyond the tree, still part of the parcel. Next photo. This is the north side of the house, and again, here's this relatively new retaining wall holding the bank back, and fairly level lawn. So stick with that one for a second. So the new house is going to be exactly where the existing house is, except that they'll be enlarging it in 2 ways. One is by adding a porch on either side, on the north side and the south side. The second way is by adding a 2-car garage, which has some sleeping rooms up above. So those are the major, site modifications that have some impact. But the porch over here is going to come out probably, roughly halfway to where the retaining wall bends. It's a fairly wide porch, but it is open area. So, and then I think the last one is an overall view. So that's what it looks like from the dock of the Gifford house next door. So you can see the little shed there, and the dock with the covered boat hoist is also part of the property. That they're not changing that. So you can see it's it's flat stuff, and then steep bank going up to the road, and then to the north of there is pretty quickly you get into a cliff situation. So I'll go through the referral report. A summary of the key points. The application is for site plan review for demolition and replacement of an existing cottage. The new cottage follows the footprint of the existing building with the addition of a 2-car garage and new porches along the north and south sides. The existing building is not in compliance with the current setback rules, but it is allowed because this expansion is allowed because it does not increase any existing nonconformities. That's the policy of the town. The project also includes relocation of an existing storage shed to the north along the lakefront. This is covered by the docks and moorings law and not under review. So they're not really asking for comments on that aspect. The increase of lot coverage is 1,790 feet, including the garage addition, the new porches, and some modifications to the shed. I'm not sure quite what that means. The garage addition includes 2 bedrooms at the second floor, increasing the capacity of the home from 3 bedrooms to 5 bedrooms. Both the lot coverage and the building coverage are well below allowable. Building coverage is 15% and allowable lot coverage is 25%. But this is quite a large lot, and so they're not even close to those limits. Site is over 1 acre, a limited level area at the lakefront, steep slope on the west side, small flat area up near County Road 16, where 2 new leach fields will be located. The garage addition will be in an area which is now a gravel drive and parking area. As part of the project, they intend to pave the rest, what's left of that parking area. So we will be going from a gravel drive to an asphalt drive. The existing building was built in about 1900 as a boathouse and accessory structure for the adjacent property to the south, which was used as Walter Reed Hotel in the early 20th century and possibly later hotel operations. It was converted to single family use by the 1940s, used as a common family property with the property to the south. And this is a historic building. I've spoken with the owners, and Leaf, the town historian, also has about documenting the building interior and exterior photos before it comes down, and they've been very amenable to that idea. Right around the house, there isn't a lot of landscaping. They are proposing to put 1 new tree in the area between to the south of the house, between the garage and the lake. And there's a lot of wooded area on the site already in the existing bank, which will not be affected. And extensive work has been done in the last 2 years to stabilize the shoreline and the bank to the west of the home with wood timber retaining walls. So environmental concerns, the increase of 1,790 square feet in building coverage plus 1,305 in asphalt paving represents a significant increase in impervious surfaces immediately adjacent to the lake, with no measures to address infiltration or to slow or reduce runoff directly into the lake. I'm sorry, what was that? Somebody say something?
I think it was just background noise.
Oh, okay. And ECB appreciates the relocation of the septic system to a site remote from the lakefront. I think that's a kind of important point here, because the existing septic system for this thing is definitely within 200 feet of the lake and has been there ever since the 1940s. So this is definitely an improvement from a water, quality point of view. So the draft recommendation, ECB recommends that the applicant incorporate measures such as bioswales, rain gardens, or dry wells to encourage infiltration in the event of heavy storms, and that the applicant consider alternatives to asphalt paving, such as pervious pavement, to reduce the increase in impervious surfaces.
Any comments or questions on that for Sarah Linda? Any suggestions? I definitely think, moving the septic is a plus, is a huge plus for the project. And they do, deserve some leeway for that. And I don't know if we can put, add strongly recommends as far as something to, because coming down that driveway, there is going to be quite a bit of water. There is going to be quite a bit of runoff. We need to see something to help slow that down.
Yeah, as part of the work that they did in the last couple of years with the retaining walls, they did create a rock-lined swale that actually goes between the 2 houses, between this one and their neighboring family house next door. And that seems to be working quite well. So it may be that they intend to run the roof drainage from the new house and from the new paved driveway and so on right into that, which would, that would be a good system. But right now, drainage matters are not really addressed in the site plan.
Okay. All right. Is there any other, anything else anybody would like to see? Sarah Linda, do you have anything else in the project itself to show?
There's a rendering, architectural plans and so on, if people want to see them.
I'll bring up the architectural plan. Yeah, that's the, and I'll bring up the site plan in a second.
The building, they have done a good job of maintaining the general visual character, with the exception of the two-car garage, which of course is a big chunk.
Yeah.
But you don't, it's at least on the back. So from the lake, it's not going to look all that different. And they didn't really, the reason for this project is that they have structural problems in the building. They're, you know, it's not doing its job holding itself together. So they decided, and they originally hoped to just repair it, and then it became pretty clear that replacing it was going to be a more cost-effective idea. And so that was the point at which they decided, well, let's put in a garage and increase the bedrooms because their family use is going up. But given all those things, I think this is a relatively modest change in the site, at least compared to a lot of what we see in demolition and replacement sorts of projects.
Yeah, compared to what it could have been.
Right. Even, there's one just 2 houses away that was that wasn't a demolition and replacement, but it's a much bigger house in terms of its impact on the site.
And then here's just the site plan where we can see the topography and where the structure will sit.
Yeah, and there are the 2 leach fields up on the flatter part of the site.
Is it just the leach fields that are being added to? Is the septic tank and pump tank and all of that new also?
I believe the whole system is new because I don't think they have a pump tank now. I think it's the gravity system right down there in their yard.
Yeah, if they're down here, if they're down here, it's probably gravity.
So the whole thing is new.
Okay, well, this is a vast improvement then.
Yeah. All right, does anybody have any other comments based on that? All right, so based on Sarah Linda's recommendations, can I get a motion to approve her recommendations to send to the planning board?
Yes.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Okay, now let's go on to CPN 21-052, which is Morel Builders, and it is the property on Route 21 and Parish Street Extension. So since we have Jeff and we have Marathon here, what we'll do is we'll go through just the review and the presentation, and then we'll let you guys ask any questions or clarify anything that we might have. Does that sound good?
Sure.
I'm hoping I think I got a smile from Jeff, so I'm hoping that's good.
Oh, very good. Yes.
I got a thumbs up.
Yeah, sorry. I wasn't
No,
sure
that's
if you
okay.
were pulling your board or myself.
That's
Good
okay.
evening, everybody.
All right. So give me a second. Like I said, everything just kind of lost out on me while I pull this up. So while I'm pulling this up, Justin, do you want to start? Do you have anything?
Yeah.
While you get your stuff ready. So here we are, right there.
All right, so I'll just run through the key points quick. So it's a request being made for a conservation subdivision, and this is going to be on 95 acres of currently vacant farmland. They're looking to put in 92 residential. Oh, sorry, I think this might be old because no, it's current, sorry.
Yeah,
That's great.
I was just updating from one of the previous ones, so if there's any little typos in there isn't quite accurate, I apologize. So basically, we've seen this a couple iterations of this before. The new phase of it being the portion that's over on Parish Street Extension, and therefore the increase from about 80 to 92 units. The current plan is there will be 3 phases of construction. I believe the first versions of it were single family homes kind of in a large circular / cul-de-sac area directly across from Miller. And this current plan shows it extending, I guess, more spread out across the acreage, allowing for more open space to be conserved between the parcels. Yeah, so the next little bullet there is the total acreage will be increasing from 54 to 95. And approximately 72 acres of it would be open space, which is great. Okay, yeah. And then with the addition of the new parcel, there'll actually be a new portion of road going across from Bristol and Miller that will connect over to Parish Street Extension. I guess what am I missing on here? Okay, so there is, I mean, which is what we like to see is a focus on the environmental features of the property, which I don't know if you've had a chance to go through the engineer's report and some of the other documents that were in the folder. There's a large wetland area on the property as well as a stream that runs through there, several acres of wooded land. And kind of the design of the project takes into account also the steep slopes and kind of avoiding those as well as the other constrained lands. I guess one of the other points from a previous round was that in doing the design, the builders and going to the townhouses from the homes, there was an effort made to make the actual homes themselves blend in better. So they were doing a low profile design to kind of minimize any visual disturbance, and that'll come into play later because I believe this was in one of the view shed areas that's identified in the open space master plan. And I guess the last little portion in there is obviously the 72 acres that is going to be remain in open space would be conveyed over to the town of Canandaigua, along with trails and whatnot that would be going through the property into the Miller Park area. Okay. Just, is there any comments at this point, or go ahead with environmental concerns that we have?
The only thing that I would add, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were talking about this at the last meeting, I think as it stands right now, the sentiment is to keep it in the HOA with public access.
Yes, that's correct. We'd be completing all the conservation easements as dictated by the town for the entire parcel, but the ongoing maintenance and management would be borne by the HOA so that the town didn't have any direct expense in that category.
And the benefit of that is public access, but it won't go onto our books for the maintenance.
Correct.
Where is the Parish Street extension connection? That's not apparent to me in that.
Give me a second, Gary, and I will. It's down here towards the bottom. I think I flew by it. This should show it. There. So we have Bristol Road here and Parish Street Extension here.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I think visually that comes out down the lower part of the hill towards the fire hydrant that's there in the dip, if that's correct?
That's correct. And if Jared, if you want me to give a quick summary just on the environmental issues, I'm happy.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that, and then we'll talk about, if I can at least bring this up here. There we go. Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Sure.
And then we can discuss.
Yeah, thanks everybody. And, for those who I've met, you certainly, know a familiar face, and introduced myself to the rest of the board. We've been a developer in Canandaigua for a long time, and so this project is a culmination of a lot of great learning and feedback. It was a very positive process in working with both the town and the respective neighbors. But I'll zero in very specifically on the environmental issues. On this one, to be honest, in our history, I've never been able to present to a conservation board where I'm not touching any of the environmental, sensitive areas throughout the entire project. In its totality, we've got just over 72 acres permanently preserved of the 95. We've designed the road layout to work exactly with the grading through the draw of the parcel in the low-lying section as you come from Bristol Road up through the parcel. And then we were able to acquire the Wilkins parcel fortuitously because New York State code has changed, requiring 2 entry and exit points for communities. And now we were able to extend the project across a small portion of the Wilkins parcel to where Parish Street extension is, providing that health, safety, welfare, second means of access, and no longer disturbing the bed and breakfast along County Road 21. And as a result of having to go kind of from the north of the parcel to the south of the parcel, we were able to also subordinate all of the entries to move all of the homes into the more middle of the project. And now we've got just a tremendous open space block, which will be a extension of the Miller Park, and all of the areas that had environmental features were protected. So we had about 7.5 acres of woodlands on the site. 100% of those are protected. In our design, we went with an arts and crafts, low profile townhome. And in doing that, we were able to reduce our impervious surface area by a little over 64%, from 19 acres down to 7 acres. The wetlands, which are to the south part of the parcel, we preserved 100% of those. And we also preserved the full stream corridor that extends from those wetlands to the north. And then we buffered that with a 100-foot buffer on both sides of it as it makes its way through the middle of the project. And then we can do our stormwater management and infiltration ponds near that corridor and do water quality treatment there as well. So there's a small section of steep slopes, 1.2 acres on the site. We are completely avoiding those as well. And because we utilized all of the grading as far as where we laid out the road, we have basically very minimal grading on the site to be the least amount of disturbance as possible. These are not large colonial homes, so we only need to grade approximately 20 feet to the rear of the building, where we can accommodate a very small lawn area and then leave the rest in its natural state. And then we'll be working with Town Parks and Rec to extend the Miller Trail connections, because there's a lot more environmental features on this site to enjoy. We'll do a small kind of gravel parking area right across from where Miller is there. And then we're extending those trails southbound around the wooded area where the original pond is. And then through the middle of the project, enjoying the stream corridor. And the other nice thing about it is we have 2 existing farm fields on the Wilkin parcel, which we can keep in permanent agriculture as well to keep that farming activity. So the open space is now in large, very usable chunks, which create great wildlife corridors and good environmental protection instead of being pocketed and abandoned in a more normal subdivision design. And we're really excited about the project. It's, as I said, in my history, I've never been able to hit a metric like this with regards to a development as it relates to environmental protection and open space. So we're moving forward with the planning board right now. We completed the town board process and just working the technical issues. Everything will be public sewer and water as well. So we'll have that infrastructure on the site in addition. So I'll open that up if anyone has any questions, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I just had, I guess, a couple questions in going through the last meeting. I guess the wetland delineation has been completed?
It has.
Okay, just waiting on the report still, or is that going to be added online?
Yeah, Rich is here with us. I don't know if you can comment on the wetland report, whether that's been submitted or not.
Just no big
It has not been submitted. Our environmental guy is working on it as we speak.
Okay, and then same, I guess, for the archaeological survey that was being performed out there?
That's correct. We don't have the report yet. That's being worked on.
Okay.
I have a question on the parcel boundaries. When you purchase a unit in this development, will you be buying any land other than just the footprint of the house, or are you just getting the house itself?
Oh, that's a great question. So even though it's say a 2-unit townhome, it is a fee simple for sale purchase. So you are taking title to the property boundaries directly around the home, and actually the property boundary goes right through the middle of the home. So it's no different than any other existing home purchase. And then what happens is the balance of the lands go into the HOA. The HOA is incorporated, and that HOA is then filed with the Attorney General's office in New York State. So the deed or title attaches to everybody's parcel of land in addition to, so you become a collective part owner in all of the open space via that HOA is how traditional title works. And that would be the case on private drives, the case all throughout Canandaigua. Anytime an HOA is formed, you're owning in common as, in this example, 1/92 of that incorporation status.
Okay, so you don't own your front yard, your backyard, your driveway. That's all homeowner association.
That's correct. So driveway maintenance, whenever you file with the Attorney General, they have to make sure all their reserves are put in, exterior grounds are all maintained in perpetuity.
There is a small backyard that does go with the lots of about 20 feet in depth.
Oh, there is.
Yes.
Yep.
Is there a map that we could see those parcel boundaries? And the other map I'd like to see, well, maybe this is it. Is this the parcel boundaries or the building boundaries?
That's the parcel boundaries.
This looks like, now is this right here, is that what is owned? These little
Correct.
spaces back here?
So if you, right. So if you look at that, that's probably easier if you blow that up a little bit. The second map that you just showed shows the entire parcel boundary, but this shows the structure within the parcel boundary. So you can see the way we design that parcel boundary is we create an allowance for approximately 20 feet immediately to the rear of the structure. And that allows a resident to put in a small garden, their own a little bit of landscaping, that they would like to maintain themselves. And then as soon as you go beyond that parcel boundary, it drops into HOA lands.
So are we looking at one-car garages here, or are these two-car garages?
2-car garages,
Yeah.
correct.
The other map I'd like to look at is the conservation analysis map. I can't remember where it is, if it's in this packet, but there's one that shows all the environmental features, which I thought was just a great thing to include. We keep asking other developers to do that, and we never seem to get them, at least not in the level of detail that this one had. It's a color map.
Is
It's
it
a color map?
the constrained land map?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Would it be in this one, Jeff, or a different one?
It's a separate file.
All right.
Yeah.
Sarah Linda, whenever we start, the design of the community, it's a heck of a lot better to work with all of the features that you've got there. So this is, I was, making a joke by, raising my hands there, but to be honest, this is our first port of call on any type of analysis that we do with site development. And we start with a parcel map like this, identifying all of the features, because we know we're going into conservation subdivision design. So you can immediately see where you want to work the development and where you want to avoid at all costs. And now you can see very clearly what we did and why we placed the infrastructure and the road network there. We followed the immediate draw through the middle. We then took its flattest point to move across that stream corridor. And then we basically did not want, we came off of that east line because we wanted to completely stay away from the steep slopes there. And then I didn't want to dig into the hill there, and we just basically laid the road right where there'd be the least amount of disturbance of grading. And then I came down in parallel with Parish Street to meet site distance requirements, because if you've driven that street, when you come up that hill, you're coming around that corner, and we wanted to make sure we had a safe entry and exit point there along Parish Street extension. And then all of the areas that you're seeing highlighted in color are basically forever wild, and we'll really be drawing natural trail networks in and around those features. Currently, Miller Park is just an open meadow park. It doesn't have particular features beyond that open meadow, and we can now extend this to pond overviews, some wooded trail networks, as well as the stream corridor, so that people really feel like they're enjoying a more diverse landscape when they're walking the trail networks.
And have you spoken with Kevin Olvani in any more detail?
I haven't, Kevin. We've been literally, hopefully we're due to speak tomorrow, but Kevin and I have been going back and forth. I think he was particularly busy just recently. And so we've reconnected because we're looking at, he's going to educate me on, I guess there's some potential grant money for looking at that stream in the Pure Waters area. So we're going to explore that together as he brings me up to speed on that.
Okay.
But we haven't connected yet.
Okay. Well, it's in the middle of lacrosse season, and Canada was doing pretty well, and his son's on the team. So
yeah, I was wondering why, because he just basically said, "I'm so sorry, I've been really busy," and maybe that's it. And I also heard some of the women's lacrosse are going off to BC that just won the national championships. I mean, Canandaigua is like the lacrosse hotbed
Yeah.
in the
We have a
country.
couple girls going to Boston College, one this year and one next year.
Yeah, that was my alma mater, although
Nice.
I have no claim to fame on the athleticism there.
Just the business acumen side of things.
Yeah,
You-
I
you-
went to their management school.
Yeah, you went on that side. So yeah, and that's another benefit to be able to tie into those grants and working, because I have talked to Kevin about that quite a few times, and he was excited about being able to use this and be able to tap into that for the clean water and the protection.
Great.
Not an environmental concern per se, but we've recently looked at another proposal on the opposite side of Parish Street Extension. And I wonder about the concerns about traffic flow. That street's moderately busy now. I mean, do you envision most of the traffic going towards 21, or will there be a lot up and down Parish Street?
That's a great question, Gary. So we completed a full traffic study with actually going out and doing counts with McFarland Johnson. There's two really strong aspects to this project. First is the project is all for an empty nester demographic. So their traffic profile is off peak, not peak. You know, no disrespect to Kevin, but when you have kids, you're going to the high school 4 or 5 times a day. As I have 2 kids in high school and 1 in college, and I know that drill very well. Empty nesters are off-peak distributed. They're very low traffic profile. And we see this with the fact that we have 2 entry and exit points as being nearly a 50-50 split in our distribution. The traffic level of service at both the entry and exit points were in the A and B levels. So we felt extremely comfortable that we would not be exacerbating any of the traffic related issues, irrespective, because they also have to do future build outs and anticipated build outs in all their calculations with a growth rate, and even including all of that, we weren't causing a traffic issue.
Except for the fact that the Bristol one has the stoplight at, correct?
Correct.
Whereas the
Yes.
Parish Street Extension one, it does not have a stoplight there. And I live right around the corner from I'm at Quail Bush, down the road from Quail Summit. And that road, even in peak hours, is always busy. But even off-peak hours, that particular extension can be pretty busy with people coming and going on 5 and 20. So, you know, if you've done the traffic piece of it, that's great, but it is a heavily trafficked, I can't talk here this afternoon, traffic intersection. And I'd have to disagree a little bit with you on the empty nesters. I'm one of those empty nesters that hauls those lacrosse kids around every place.
Well, then you're truly not empty, you know, but you're absolutely right. And actually having, you know, the reality is the outbound left onto the 5 and 20. And it is very nice to be able to access both a signalized intersection and a non. So you really anticipate if someone's like, okay, I need to go left outbound on the 5 and 20, they would be exiting to the north.
Right.
If I'm going to Wegmans into city center, I'm going to exit to the south and go right on the 5 and 20. And that diversity is also kind of rare. A lot of times I have a single entry point. And so we can disperse more appropriately.
Yeah, probably the more traffic would be down to the hospital or the medical group would be the straight piece.
I would agree with you. But they when they did the traffic study, just for your comfort, they studied all intersections. You know, we made them cast a wide net there.
Jeff, in your discussions about traffic, has a sidewalk and pedestrian traffic come up at all? I mean, we've raised this with a number of projects that it would be desirable to have a sidewalk, a pedestrian connection into the city, recognizing that 5 and 20 is an obstacle, and that the Bristol Road crossing would probably be safer than a Parish Road extension. But has that been addressed at all in your side of things?
It hasn't, and I think what we would be doing is when we go to look at our access management, because we have to deal with DOT, we can do that. I am a massive advocate of the walkability of communities and the extension of those. So in addition, through our community, we will have a full sidewalk on one side of the street. And the other issue was making sure that we had good pedestrian access from one side of 21 to the other, from Miller Park to Miller Park, the new Miller Park to the old Miller Park. So what I'll do is just take an action item there and see where those discussions go with the state DOT. It's a tough one. The DOT does things at their own pace. So I'll let you know how that progresses. I think it would be fantastic. Yeah, I'm not sure on the east side whether Bristol Road is extended sidewalks up to that 5 and 20 position
No,
as
it
well.
isn't. It stops
No.
at the hammocks. The
Yeah,
hammocks is where the sidewalks start.
right.
Stop.
It actually does extend all the way on Parish Street, but again,
Right.
there's no
There's no signal.
so
There's no
that kind of-
signalization there.
All right, any other questions or comments before we get to the recommendations? All right, we'll go back to these, and Justin will let you hit on those recommendations.
Yeah, I'll just read through them. So the first portion of there is, overall, the design of the property is well thought out, and the focus on preserving the environmental attributes is appreciated. As you touched on, all woodlands, wetlands, stream corridors would be preserved under the current plan. The proposed trails and sidewalks would provide an extensive network for the public to enjoy the natural features of the property and nearby Miller Park, especially considering the connectivity of the site to Bristol Road and 5 and 20. The ECB agrees that the addition of the open space lands to the Miller Park acreage would provide great opportunity for the town to preserve a larger contiguous natural space for residents to utilize. And then the final point being ECB continues to advocate for a higher stream buffer requirement for future pedestrian link to the city sidewalk system and for cooperative management of the conserved lands along with Miller Park's grassland bird habitat.
Can I ask a quick question on that last point, cooperative management on the conserved lands? Can you elaborate a little bit more there, and so I can see how best to address that when I'm working on conservation easements in those filings to see if it's appropriate to incorporate some of that language?
Yeah, I think the intent when I initially did that a while back was just that, and I think you touched on it, is you're going to be coordinating with Parks and Rec regarding what they're currently doing across the street at Miller Park, so that they're kind of being managed together and not separate from one another.
Okay.
I know it'll be a little more diverse on your side there, so obviously it'll be a little different, but as for like mowing schedule, stuff like that for, I guess, bird habitat, I'm not quite the one to speak on that, but I'm assuming they're going to mow in certain patterns for certain species if they're seeing them there.
Okay, so that management plan that we developed with Parks and Rec, that would incorporate the guidelines that the ECB would like us to adhere to.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
All right, does anybody have anything else? Any other questions or anything else that they would like to add? All right, Jeff, do you have any other comments or?
No, thanks everybody for your time and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All right, so can I get a motion to approve the recommendations as outlined?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right,
Edith got it? Okay.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion carries and the recommendations carry and they will be submitted. Okay. All right, thanks guys for coming in.
Okay, enjoy your summer, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
Jeff.
Take care.
Again.
All right, now let's go ahead and move on to old business. Any updates on the newsletter? I think we're good through August.
Well, except for July, we don't have a topic
I
yet.
know.
But I came up with an idea I'd like to get you all's opinion on. Since it's July, I was thinking of, and I did send Rocky an email. I haven't heard response from him, but I was thinking of maybe an article on environmental patriotism.
Oh,
Edith thought it was kind of a good idea. I mean, it could be very general and broad, just kind of, taking that term and just overall saying what that could mean to citizens and residents.
I think there's a great
A
deal.
general way, be responsible for your land and do your recycling and whatever else we can stick in there and make a nice
great.
sort of a patriotic-ish article for July.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yep, we could even talk about planting your victory gardens. We could even
Yeah.
throw that, we
Yeah,
can
there you
throw
go.
that out there.
So if anyone wants to put their 2 or 3 cents in, you can send me your ideas. I mean, I'm happy to try to throw it together and then we could all review it, of course, and see what we would like or not like about the article. So what do y'all think?
Go for it.
Yes, I think that's
a great
great.
idea.
Yeah.
We need something to fall back on there, and I think that's a good one.
Yeah. And then if Rocky, comes up with something, maybe we could push it into September perhaps, or we'll see. But that's at least a direction to go in,
Okay, perfect. Thank you for following up on that, Pat.
Sure.
And we can just, my wife teaches with his wife, so I'll just have her give the assignment to Karen and she can give it to Rocky.
There you go.
She can take a note home from school for me. Get him into a little trouble.
I have one other idea that probably doesn't merit an entire article, but maybe just a paragraph having to do with the gypsy moth problem that so many people have, suddenly have it come home to them personally that they're getting eaten, and wondering what they should have done or could do. And probably by, July or August, hopefully that'll be behind us for the year, but maybe it would be worth, and actually it could be later on too, but maybe it would be worth advising people what they could do next year to address that before it's too late. And of course, we don't know how bad the problem is going to be next year or even this year entirely, but
it might be a good thing to get Dan Marion, who is on the tree committee and is the tree expert, to weigh in on that with an article.
yeah,
He's very knowledgeable.
And you're kind of thinking, am I too late to do anything? That type of thing. What do I do now?
That's what happens next year.
Yeah.
I was thinking more, what should you plan to do, like maybe a dormant oil spray in February, March or something like that, before people even think about it.
Okay.
But that would be one possibility. But he'd know more. So
If anybody knows, down with
micro level,
I have his email.
Okay. Like future action steps for the next season.
Right.
I will get in touch with him.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Edith.
All right, display case. I'm assuming that we don't have an, so we can we take off the children's art, or are we gonna still try?
I have kind of, I don't think anything is going to produce there. It's really time to change it anyway.
Okay,
And as I recall, there were people interested in putting up a recycling display at
oh, that's right.
summer.
Yep,
I would be happy to assist, but
no, I will do that, right? That one I'm remembering, you refreshed my recollection.
I
So-
see. Very good. Well, the only thing that cannot be thrown away out of what's up there now, it would be the fake chipmunk and the piece of tree. And those I would like to have back if you're not going to use them.
Fair enough,
Because I'd probably use them again.
duly noted.
Hey,
Thank
I
you.
have a suggestion. We could make that chipmunk our ECB mascot and like give him a name, you know,
Okay, well,
like
yes, think of a name.
Charlie
I will
Canandaigua
not
Chipmunk or
repeat them.
something like that.
I
So
will
you're-
not repeat the names. I've been giving the real ones that are eating up all of my flower bulbs.
Yeah, they are around, those buggers.
So you're thinking we could put the chipmunk in there? It's kind of like Where's Waldo?
Yeah,
Well,
It
maybe.
can be hidden
yes,
somewhere in the
yes.
case.
Why not? The
Or dress the
sycamore
chi-
branch could be used for something. I don't know
Dress
why.
the chipmunk up for holidays.
Good idea,
Why
good
not?
idea.
Put a little, patriotic shirt on it for coming up to the fore.
Yes, very good.
Mhm.
Or a bib if we're doing compost.
Yeah. Okay. All right, now, so I will, and I will do that before I get up from my chair after this meeting. I'll reach out to Caitlin on that. So as far as new business, let's start with the ordinance committee has started discussing the Ridgeline ordinance discussion to go from the code that we have, the suggestions that we have, and try and codify them and make them something with a little bit more teeth. I've received several emails and letters from residents throughout the town who are very much in favor of that. So I know the ordinance committee is working on that. I was wondering if anybody would be interested. There's so much to it. I don't want to take, because it could take an hour or so just to kind of break down what's in there. If anybody is interested in volunteering on that with me, I have some other ideas, kind of like a scenic view overlay district or a ridgeline protection overlay district that other communities have, to try to help along the process and give some suggestions and ideas to the ordinance committee and kind of work together with them on the process of this. So I don't need a decision now, but if anybody's interested in that and would like to reach out to me, who'd want to work with me on that, that would be fantastic. July meeting date. I am out of town that first Thursday in July. We'll be heading up to Maine for my in-laws' 60th. So I think they're one of those. And we'll be back probably that Friday, so we won't be around that Thursday. I think we leave on Tuesday. It's a quick trip. So do you want to continue with the meeting as scheduled? And now that we do have Shauna with us to help with some of that, or do you want to reschedule it to a different date?
What date is that? The first?
So
Yeah.
I am,
The 1st of July.
yeah, it would be July 1st, and we are gone probably we're gone about June 29th. So we're gone June 29th through, and we're coming back home the 2nd.
I'd be in favor of switching it to the 8th.
So the following Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd
So
be
you wanna-
fine.
Is that,
Yeah.
is that okay with everybody?
That'd be
Yes.
fine with me.
Okay. All
How
right.
about I verify that there's no conflicts at that time, and then I'll let the board know?
Okay.
That would be great.
Okay.
All right. So Shauna, we'll let you run with that one and then just get back to us.
I will do that.
And then we also can decide, I don't know how you feel, any of you feel about we can start meeting at town hall, but we also need to have the remote option for people who want to attend remotely. And also the option that it will be, recorded, because I think one thing this has shown us, this whole COVID experience, is that we get a lot more participation, especially thinking about board meetings when we might have, typically, if you've ever gone, there might be 3 or 4 people in attendance from the public. But at some of these now, we might have 60, 70 or more just dropping in and paying attention, and it's recorded, which I think is great for
Mhm.
transparency and people being able to look back and see what's going on and discussion and all of that. So we can start thinking about if we want to keep it remote, if we want. I think our format lends itself fine to the remote setting like this. So just think about that too. If you want to start meeting back in town hall, there are logistical issues with coordinating the remote people with the in-person people. We tried that at our last town board meeting, and there were a few glitches along the way. Gary, Terry, and I were in town hall, and Linda and Kathy were not. So it worked okay for the most part. So I'll think about that. But if I don't hear anything, I think we just plan on meeting remotely by Zoom. And if that's the most convenient, as long as we can keep continuing like that, I'm okay with that as well. All right, now Sarah Linda shared some information, sent me an email about the NRI discussion. And looking through, Sarah Linda, do you want to share any of those thoughts or updates that you had? Just a couple key points to pull out from that.
Yes, I thought I had made myself a copy, but I can't put my hands on it now. So if you can you bring it up on the screen?
Yeah, it's gonna take me a second because my iCloud email does not work in Google Chrome, so I have to open up a different web browser.
Okay, or if I can get back to my own screen, I could print it out, but I don't know how to do that without abandoning the meeting.
We don't want you doing that.
Well, I don't know. How do I minimize the Zoom meeting and still? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I could do it that way. No, because that's your screen.
So if you just give me a second, I might be able to.
Oh, wait a minute. There, I did it. Okay.
I was able to get in. Email worked a little faster, so if I get it and pulled up, I'll share it on the screen.
Okay, sounds good.
Let me try and find it. All right, I have it and I'll bring it over. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
All right, so Sarah Linda, I've got it up in the shared.
Okay, great. There it is. So the background here is I was not able to sit in on the NRI training, which was May 5th, the day before our last meeting, actually. And I don't know how many of you were in on that. I know Gary was there and Jared was there, and I don't know if any of the rest of you made it. So, but in any case, it was recorded, so you can go to the YouTube channel and watch the thing. And by the way, in case you're not aware, the same is true of all of the PRC meetings. If you are particularly curious about a item that's on the agenda, one of the review things, and you want to hear what the PRC discussion of it was like, those are all recorded too. So those are, if you have the time, those are very worth going into. So anyway, I'm just curious, how many of you have actually listened to the NRI training? It looks like Susan.
It's like Susan.
Okay, well, you may have some of the same questions or comments when and if you have a chance to go through it, but the gist of this is this whole NRI document. This was a consultant project, and the purpose of it was to give the ECB tools to do a better job of doing our environmental reviews of upcoming projects. So, so there's this long report. It's almost as big as the open space plan. It has a lot of the same maps or similar maps, and there are a few additional ones, but a lot of the same information that was in the open space plan is repeated here. And then there are these tools, the checklist and the project review guide, that provide a lot of step-by-step instruction about how to go about evaluating a project from the point of view of environmental stuff. So the discussion in this NRI training, Barb Johnston, who was the principal author, went through the whole thing and the checklist and the guide. And then there was discussion mainly by the town staff, Doug Finch and Chris Jensen and Lance Brabant, who is an MRB employee, who is the town's, MRB is the town engineer, and Lance is the engineer within MRB who's assigned to the town of Canandaigua. So he's in on the PRC meetings, and he's the one who's really responsible for doing the detailed technical environmental review for every project. So this, let's see, my reaction to the whole thing was I feel like I still have a lot of questions about what the ECB's responsibility is here compared with, for instance, the town engineer's responsibility, because in a number of ways we're all reviewing the same thing from the same point of view, and it doesn't make sense for us to be stepping on each other's toes. And I think I'd like to see some further discussion between us and these other entities to kind of make it clear what each of these groups is adding to the discussion, and so that we're not essentially trying to do the same thing.
So with that, are you advocating to create a checklist or a responsibility matrix where it would say what each group does and what each part of the process each group does?
Or maybe just expanding the checklist which has been developed to have another column which includes which entities would be responsible for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there already is a pretty extensive checklist prepared just for the PRC meetings.
Yeah.
It, goes through all of these same things in addition to a lot of other factors. And that was one of the suggestions that Lance had, or that came out of the meeting, was, well, why don't we take the checklist that's in the NRI training and sort of load it on top of the existing PRC checklist, so that all of these factors that we're trying to review and raise questions about have already been looked at by the PRC people. Now, one thing that's new and different in the last 6 months is that our chairman, Joyce, always went to the PRC meetings. And I think that had the effect of having somebody that was primarily looking at the thing from an environmental standpoint right in there at the first discussion. Right now, that's not happening because we don't have any member who volunteered to do that. And, you know, mainly for time reasons, the PRC meetings they don't just consider the projects that come to us. They consider every single project that's come in to the development office. So those meetings can be 3 and 4 hours. They happen on a Monday morning. And one of the things that they do is to decide who should this get referred to. So if the PRC might have, let's say 10 or 12 projects on their agenda, and out of that, maybe only 2 or 3 will end up being referred to the ECB, or maybe 5 or 6 of them, or maybe almost all of them. I mean, it just depends on what they are. But it didn't seem to me like there was it seemed to me it was a little bit arbitrary what was getting referred to the ECB, and that back in the days when Joyce was there, she was probably raising her hand and saying, hey, I think this should go to the ECB, even if there wasn't any really clear, it has to go to the ECB kind of a thing. So,
yeah, so, you know, building on from that. So when I had, when we were talking about the change, and Doug and I were talking about this, that was probably the #1 issue that came up just for myself personally for the schedule, because again, in the middle of a work day. So summertime, I'm hoping to be able to go in the summer months to be able to make it to that. That's my plan. Schedule will free up for that. The only other option would be, and I brought this up, not to a lot of enthusiastic response, but even adjusting the times of those meetings and doing them at a different time. So as long as I'm there as chair, that I could attend those meetings. But if that doesn't happen, that's an excellent suggestion. You know, if there are people who want to attend those or are able to, or even having a more clear checklist would, at least we'd have a streamlined process of, okay, this meets these certain requirements, so this is going to go to the ECB to know exactly what, you know, if it checks X number of boxes, then it goes automatically to the ECB.
or another possibility, I mean, since they are recorded and the recording doesn't go up right away, but it usually goes up within a day or two. So maybe if there were some ECB members willing to listen to the recording, and then maybe just among themselves have a sort of a referral meeting by the end of that week, let's say, to just, you know, review and decide, okay, does the full ECB really need to look at this or not?
Yeah.
That would, I mean, Justin and I have been doing that, or I've been trying to listen to the entire thing, although I don't even make it through the whole thing. I mean, there's some that I just look at the agenda and I say, I can't believe this is going to have to go to the ECB, so I don't spend or maybe I skim through the video on it. But anyway, but possibly if everybody, or at least 4 or 5 people on the ECB were willing to spend, let's say, a half an hour on a certain section of the meeting, so that not everybody would have to listen to the whole thing.
Can I speak up here? I mean, I'm the common thread, I think, in that I'll be at both meetings. And I mean, although I'm looking at things a little more globally, I feel comfortable, looking at the environmental side of things, but I just need a little bit more time to get my feet wet, and that I think there's definitely merit in changing things up a little bit and making sure that you guys see what you need to see. And I think that's really important. And I definitely would love to work with you on that. And rather than have you all listen to the meeting again, convey certain applications, and if it's talk to somebody from the board, like right after the meeting, the day after, but I feel like we can sit down and figure out a system that would be beneficial.
Even even Shauna, you and I could sit down and talk about that too, and see how we want to set it up.
Yeah.
So, like you said, I mean, you're at both, you are at those, so maybe and you're with us, so maybe we can streamline that process a little bit. Right.
And I mean, there's going to be times when I'm seeing an application in front of 4 different boards, so I'm going to have a pretty strong familiarity with these.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you brought that up, Shauna, and I think, you know, as you said, you're the common denominator, and if you can kind of put on your environmental review hat in a way that represents the points that we're all trying to make, that will be great.
Absolutely.
The other thing that came up is what happens after our ECB meetings. I mean, one thing I'm really looking forward to having you here, Shauna, so you can do something that Eric used to do for us, but that we've kind of lost in the interim here when we didn't have a planner, and that is to let us know what the results were of the last month's applications, because we don't know unless we bother to go to listen, you know, look at the minutes or something. And Lance actually brought up a timing issue, because sometimes we will review a project on a Thursday and it might go to the zoning board the following Monday or Tuesday, whatever it is. So there's a pretty short window there. And I think Lance is making the point, he's not sure that the zoning board members, you know, there's not enough time there for our recommendations to really kind of sink in, and they may just not be getting the weight that we would like to see them have. And his suggestion is, well, if there's an ECB member who could actually go to the zoning board so that that person is right in the room and in their face and say, hey, wait a minute, you know, here's an environmental recommendation we're making, and we don't want you to ignore it, because sometimes it seems like they do ignore them. So maybe if you're the person who could do that on our behalf, that would be wonderful. But I know you have other jobs too. So anyway, that was, you know, another piece of the whole timing puzzle that I think needs to be worked out. And he thought maybe it made sense to just postpone things until the following zoning board meeting. So there was always at least a week in between the ECB recommendations and the zoning board meeting, or the planning board meeting for that matter.
That sounds like one of the better options, is just to have that time, in my opinion.
So then here's another one. Site visits was another one. Everybody thought, you know, it's really good to have somebody who's in the room and in the decision-making capacity have actually gone out and physically looked at the site. And you know, those of us who do the review sometimes do that. I don't know if any other members do that. And the town staff, I think, likes to do it, but sometimes they get pretty busy and don't always do that. So I would, you know, that's a piece that would, I think, help everybody if there could be you know, even if it's a bulletin board or something like that, where if somebody is going to go by the site, they can let the rest of the board members know, see if people have questions, if they're going to take pictures, put them on the board there, just so that we get the benefit of a site visit, whether it's the town staff. I mean, Chris Jensen said he usually goes out and tries to take a look at the site, but we never hear what he thought about it. So there's not as much communication as there might be that's, you know, directly at the site.
It would be great if he was, did he say he hits all of them? Does he try to hit all of them?
I don't know.
He does. I know he does try to hit all of them.
Because
even when I'm going to be going out too, is putting pictures in the shared file. So for everyone to see, I think is a really great suggestion.
Mm-hmm. And if people are there anyway, it might save that double, you know, overlapping the assignments to see.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, the town staff gets these applications before anybody else does. So if those photos could go up early on, that would be great. And let's see, where's the site visits? Oh, then the other thing is, say there are questions that come up that we don't know the answers to. I mean, you know, we're not experts. We're not all educated in environmental stuff. We have a variety of backgrounds. And for instance, we had that case a few months ago of the solar farm when we got into a discussion about whether it's a good idea for to put solar panels over a wetland. And also a discussion about what kind of vegetation you should have under the solar panels. And I didn't know the answer to that. I don't think anybody, you know, we didn't know. And the suggestion that Barb Johnston made was, well, if you have a question like that, you don't know the answer, there should be a mechanism for hiring somebody to answer that question for you. And I think she might have been talking particularly about the wildlife, or, you know, our town engineer and other engineering firms have habitat related expertise.
Ecologists. Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
she spoke-
Geologists.
spoke a
Right,
couple times.
biologists, wildlife people, plant people, tree people. So, you know, it would be very sort of comforting to me to think that we had a resource that we could ask questions of. I don't think it would happen every month, but right now I think we're just kind of shooting in the dark on some of these more technical issues.
And thinking about the financial side of those things, I made a note to check to see if that could be a chargeback. I don't know if it could be, if that could be, you know, the applicant, if there's
Mhm.
something with an extenuating circumstance that we could charge that back to the applicant if we bring an expert in, just like we would for an attorney, just like we would for an engineer, just like we would for any sort of other plan, to see. So we can find out about that too.
How do you find an ecologist?
What's that?
So, where do you go to find an ecologist?
Well, you go to an engineering firm. I mean, this is part
Yeah.
of engineering or environmental engineering, but you know, those big engineering firms have people who will answer those questions.
Well, Bergman has one on staff, and he actually was part of the presentation. So yeah, they're not hard to find.
So it would just be a matter of making sure that we can do that, that we can do it and have that as part of the application cost.
There was a lot of discussion in the training session about the PRC checklist and trying to merge the NRI checklist and the PRC checklist. And it was not immediately clear who was going to do that and when. And I think it would be a good thing if somebody from the ECB was in on that whole effort. And then the last big one was the NRI document really is most relevant to large scale development projects where you have many acres and you have different habitats and fields and woods and all that stuff. But a lot of the applications that we end up reviewing are not like that, but they're rather lakefront developments. And they're there because somebody has made a decision that every project in the RLD has to go to the ECB. But if the NRI index here is our marching orders, they don't really say anything about what standards we should be using for these projects. How do these what's the environmental effect of these projects? I mean, we know we're focusing on impervious surface and lot coverage and so on, but that might be worth some discussion. So that's covering a lot of territory, but I guess the bottom line is, if you haven't listened to the NRI training, I think it's worthwhile. And maybe at some point, once most of the people have looked at that, we could have a session of just sort of thinking through our procedures and seeing if we want to change anything.
Yeah, and I think too, Shauna, like I had mentioned, I'll reach out, see if we can touch base, if we can connect in the next week or so and look at the, you know, how to, as far as the PRC information at the PRC and what gets referred to the ECB, and then even merging those two, the checklist, the NRI and the PRC. I think that's something that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
I can pop down into town hall and we can do that.
Okay. That sounds great. And then we'll look at the chargebacks as well.
Yeah, and see if that's, yeah, how we can make that work. All right, well, thanks for sharing those, Sarah Linda, and looking at that, and definitely, you know, things to make our process smoother and, you know, smoother, streamlined, and stop some of that, you know, that duplication. All right, anything else from that to bring up? Are you good?
That's it.
Sarah Linda, you all set? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, where did I put them? Uh-oh, I'm fired. My agenda got buried under a whole bunch of pieces of paper. Oh, there it is. Okay, so any other member reports? Anything from the CIC? Local history?
I was at the Jared, I was at the
Yep.
CIC meeting, and they were discussing the conservation easement team, and Barb from Labella was helping with better guidelines for conservation easements. So there was a document that we were given to read before the meeting, Sarah provided to us. But they were just talking about how big of an undertaking conservation easements are going to be, how they're going to be created, who's going to handle them, inspections, like homeowner associations, are they going to be taking them? Is the town or individuals? So I think there's still a lot more to be determined, but she did give us, Barb at Labella gave us a little more input for guidelines.
Yeah, and it seems like at the end, after each of the meetings, there are even more meetings because there's even more to look at.
Yeah.
From what I've seen from watching it. So it is, I mean, it's good. There are a lot of questions, and it's, you know, better to be thorough and have that out there all through the steps. All right, local history.
Nothing much new. We're all pretty busy, so we're gonna kind of take it easy for the next few months and see if we can push our projects ahead slowly but surely.
Okay. Tree board, Edith?
We toured one cemetery and 3 parks in May, and then had a joint meeting with the City of Canandaigua Tree Board. The main takeaway from the tour, we went to Remington Cemetery, which I did not know existed. It's very old. The trees are wonderful. It's very hard to get to. The main concern are the ash trees. The Pierce Park in Cheshire has a number of dead ash trees that are in high traffic areas. One that is over a driveway, some that are near the soccer baseball fields. And these really need to be taken down as they are a risk. Ash trees tend to stand dead for a couple of years, and then the upper branches begin to fall. And they are quite dangerous and present a hazard and a risk of liability to the town. I would like to see people taking a look at those as soon as they can.
Was that forwarded off to anyone, or do you want me to bring that up?
I have, I sent the write-up of it to Dennis and Dan Marion, and I think they shared it. I think probably they have shared it with Sarah. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I just write it up. We toured the McJanet Park and the uplands at Ononda Park. McJanet again has some trees that are obviously salt damaged and some that need to come down. At the uplands at Ononda, it was very easy to see lots of gypsy moth egg cases. There are innumerable invasive species there, buckthorn and multiflora rose, that are insidious. I don't know exactly how that's going to ever be eradicated, but the multiflora absolutely ought to be tackled if it can be, because it spreads like crazy. We did find some native dogwood blooming in uplands in Onondaga, which is quite a pleasure.
Yeah.
We met with the City of Canandaigua's tree committee and exchanged ideas and views. One of the things that the city does is have a certificate for remarkable trees, which I immediately thought of the tree that is in the lower portion of Onondaga Park that is ancient and was planted next to the original structure there when it was a private home, probably as a lightning rod. And it is immense and quite wonderful. There were a couple of evergreen trees in a cemetery on Seneca Point that are fantastic. I can think of a couple along Cooley Road, catalpa trees that will be blooming soon that are just spectacular. So we are kind of tossing around the idea of allowing people to nominate remarkable trees and doing a photography project of those. Maybe that would be a nice bulletin board sometime, or something to put in the newsletters. There's a fantastic immense oak tree just north of my place that I wish was in my yard that I will certainly nominate, but we would be probably asking people if it was permissible to photograph their trees if they're not on town property, and to post them. Might be nice to have a tree tour, you know. If a lot of people like to see trees, this would be something that would be kind of fun to have as part of the town website, or again, a bulletin board.
All right. Anything else?
That's it.
That's quite a bit. All right. Thank you. And then anything else from conservation easement? I don't know. I know that we mentioned that we touched on that a little bit.
Well, I attended the meeting I think the contents of that were recorded and probably are available on the town website.
Yeah.
It was quite extensive.
All right. Okay, does anybody have anything else for the good of the order to bring up? Any questions or comments before we close? All right, I'd like to thank everybody for their input and everybody's work in all the projects and groups that they're on. And again, thanks for working with us, Shauna. We look forward to working with you throughout the process. And Eric, hopefully we didn't scare you away, and at least you didn't come to the 3.5-hour meeting that we had a couple months ago. So that might have chased you away right then. I think.
We hope not.
Yeah, Kim was like, I think after that, Kim was like, what was I thinking? Because that might have been your first one, I think. So
it was
anyway,
pretty awful.
yeah, there's a lot. There was so much. And all those of you who did the site visits and the recommendations, you did a ton of work on that meeting. So anyway, with that said, I think that brings our meeting to a close. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, can I get a second?
Oh, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And appreciate all your input. And since we won't be getting together before the 4th, hope you guys all have a great 4th of July. And hopefully the weather's as beautiful as Memorial Day turned out, because that was just a gorgeous day to be outside. So we'll be rolling into summer. It'll be it'll be the 4th of July before we know it. And there's a parade. I got an email that get yourselves ready for the 4th of July parade. It's a little later, but it's going to be there. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks everybody, and have a great evening, and we'll be in touch.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Great.
thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank
See you all next
Bye.
time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.